We want people to come in the cage wash area and really buy into that mission and that true understanding of what we said, scraping cages save lives. And if you attach value to someone's worth, then they're going to feel good about getting up in the morning. They're going to be passionate about coming to work. And when they feel good, they're going to work good. When they work good, it's a benefit to the organization. But most of all, the kids is rewarded also, knowing that they have someone that care enough and passionate enough about their job to make sure that they do good work so that the curing of catastrophic diseases can be carried on.
Welcome to The Last Word, the official ALAS podcast dedicated to connecting and informing the laboratory animal science community. Each episode takes a closer look at recent articles published in our journals, JLAS and LAS Pro, and features interviews with professionals advancing the field. I'm Jennifer Smith, your host. As a laboratory animal veterinarian and the Director of Education and Scientific Affairs at ALAS, I look forward to sharing these conversations with you. Let's discover something new together. Welcome. Today in this episode, I am joined by a very special individual and a new friend and a new local friend, which is exciting too, Mr. Leander Mallard. Leander is the cage wash manager at St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital right here in Memphis, and he has worked there for over 22 years. Leander holds a bachelor's degree from St. Augustine College in North Carolina. He's originally from Florida, and he is here today to talk about his career, his take on our industry, and just give us his pearls of wisdom. We are so excited to have him on the podcast today. So, Leander, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here and to be on this podcast. Like you said, I'm a Floridian, so I love warm weather. I love sports. And one of my favorite pastimes is I love watching crime shows. So I'm passionate about that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Our listeners love to hear who these people are that we're interviewing and what they like to do in their off time. And so I'm so excited. And I know that you are a very impassioned person. So this is going to be really exciting for us. Okay. So you said you're from Florida. We know you went to North Carolina for college. We want to know, how did you get into this industry? How did you get to St. Jude's? We want to know. Tell us.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. I traveled a very unique road. At the time, I was working in 2002, I was working for a temporary agency, and I was a staff coordinator. And one of my job responsibilities was to staff St. Jude for temps. We had reached a particular point in our job where things were getting a little slow. And my boss came to me and she said, "Hey, I'm probably going to have to do some laying off, but I'm going to try to place you on a job before we get to the layoff." And the following morning, she came to me. She says, "Look, there's an opening at St. Jude in the cage wash. I really think you would love that job, and it will be a great opportunity for you in learning about science in a way that I think you would love it." And I took the job. And so I came as a temporary and worked for about 8 months, and I got hired from temp straight to the cage wash supervisor.
Wow. Oh my gosh. What a great story. I love hearing that. And I shout out to that woman who guided you. And wow, she really knew what she was doing. And I mean, to our benefit, she started you and just handed you into this amazing career. Wow, that is fantastic. Did you keep up with her at all?
Oh, yes. Yes, she still runs a temporary agency. And her daughter works for the CEO of St. Jude.
Oh, my goodness.
And so when she comes to have lunch with her daughter, she'll call me sometimes and I'll join them for lunch. So I've always stayed in touch with her. I'm very grateful and the friendship is amazing. And I will always think about how I got at such a great organization. And I'm grateful that she chose or she felt that I would be a good fit for St. Jude.
Oh, I just love hearing that, Lander. It just really makes me think, and I hope it makes our listeners think about just who along the way helped us to get where we're at. And I think it's so fantastic that you are still in touch with this person and sharing, your life journey with her. And I need to make sure that I stay in touch with the mentors that helped me as well. It's easy to get busy and forget, but how amazing.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you for reminding all of us how important it is to look back and make sure too. I think what I'm really challenged with in hearing this from you is just making sure that I'm being a mentor when the opportunity presents itself. And so I love that challenge. Thank you. Okay. Tell us more about St. Jude. What else do you do there? It's ironic in that when we were setting up the interview today, Leander is down in the cage wash working. So if you can hear that machinery in the background, I love that it's there because it reminds us that this is such an important job. You're doing it, as we speak. So tell us what you do there in the cage wash.
Our job responsibilities is to make sure that we sterilize and sanitize equipment for our scientists and researchers. But another thing is important is that we want to make sure that we deliver a level of customer service that is unmatched by any cage wash. It's important to us to not only understand the importance of quality control, understand the importance of good sterilization and clean and functionally working equipment, but also we play a critical role in developing individuals that want to get in this field. Cage wash is a great opportunity for them to learn early in the process how important animal research is. And we have this motto, scraping cages and changing cages save lives. And so that motto is important to us. And we want to make sure that as individuals that have no knowledge of this field, the moment they step foot at St. Jude, we want to help them understand the importance of the mission and why we do what we do and the importance of it and how it affects young children's lives.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love it. And I'm sure all of our listeners here are just sitting here like, what else is he going to say? This is such good wisdom. Because you're right. It does save lives. And it doesn't matter where you're at, right? And it's such a thankless job. And so we appreciate it, but I love that you're just highlighting, from the very beginning. And how interesting is it that in our industry, the cage wash is usually an entry point for folks coming into the industry, right? It's like one of the most important jobs and it's the entry point. It's always struck me as interesting. I'm thankful there are people like you to catch people as they come in the door and make sure that they know how important it is. With that said, tell us just about in general. You've seen it all, right? You've seen 22 years of cage wash operation changes, operational excellence. Tell us, what do you think the industry is facing now? How has it evolved in the cage wash? What's good? What's maybe not so good? What would you love to see to be different?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is changing the public perception and even changing the perception of those that work in the animal field, that how critical the starting point of working in cage wash can be instrumental in the developing and the progression of someone's career. I've always been a believer that you're more valuable to the organization if you go bottom up as opposed to top down, because it allows you the opportunity to understand what matters most because you're closely aligned and you're working closely with the individuals that are doing maybe a work that is not desirable. And so I think that that's important. Also, the public perception about it's gotten a little bit better and we can probably do more as far as how people perceive the work in animal research work. That's still a hot topic sometimes. And so I think that maybe organizations can come up with better ways to maybe once a year, maybe have some sessions where they kind of give employees talking points or help them to find ways to navigate or communicate how important animal research is to maybe those that don't have an issue with animal research. So I think those are some things that can probably be helpful in the challenges in our industry today.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. What do you feel are some of the hardest things when folks come into your organization and they start in cage wash? What are some of the hardest things that you have to overcome to kind of get them going in the right direction?
To get past soil bedding, hustle and bustle, just working in a very hot, maybe steamy, wet environment, getting them to look at the big picture, getting them to see that, hey, this is just a starting point. Because as you grow in an organization, those moments that you probably felt like you wasn't cut out to do this particular work, those are going to be very special moments because it's going to mean something to you. It's the old saying, no pain, no gain. And sometimes some of our greatest things that mean the most to us was when we were challenged. And because a lot of times people are coming into the cage wash area, they're coming from maybe other desirable jobs because they don't really have that information and understanding of why cage wash is so important. And so one of the things we felt that was important to us as an organization is we want people to come in the cage wash area and really buy into that mission and that true understanding of what we said, scraping cages save lives. And if you attach value to someone's worth, then they're going to feel good about getting up in the morning. They're going to be passionate about coming to work. And when they feel good, they're going to work good. When they work good, it's a benefit to the organization. But most of all, the kids is rewarded also, knowing that they have someone that care enough and passionate enough about their job to make sure that they do good work so that the curing of catastrophic diseases can be carried on.
Oh, that's so great. I want to work with you.
Yeah.
You're so inspiring. Okay, so here's a question I always kind of think through in overseeing a program. People start in cage wash. That seems to be a very common theme across facilities. And I just wonder, how do you see over 22 years, do you see most people matriculating out of the cage wash, or do you feel like you're able to provide this career path to keep people there? How do you tackle that? That's a tough one, I think.
So what happens is I found something when new people come in, new hires come in, is one of the most important things to me is to build a relationship. And when I build a relationship, then at moments I can be able to sit down and have certain conversations with them on how I started out in cage wash, the time I spent in husbandry. I was a husbandry supervisor. So they get a chance to listen to a person that walked that walk. You know, it's easy to tell someone to hold on, be patient, be passionate. These are some things that you can do as the career ladder. But when they see it manifested in their leader, in their boss, then that means a lot because I want them to know I care about them because someone cared about me and someone helped me through this process. And so when I see someone that's passionate and come in, I said, look, it's going to be a little rough in the beginning because I know you're not used to this work. You're wearing PPE. It can sometimes machines go down. It can be frustrating. I said, but trust, when you run across a kid that has been cured by cancer, then you think about how you started out on this journey, then everything is worth it. Everything is worth it. And most of all, in our department at St. Jude, 70% of everyone in management started out in cage wash.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah, so they'll see that. And so when I'm having conversations with them, I can say, do you know Ashley Valerie? Yeah. Well, Ashley worked both sides of cage wash. She moved up to husbandry. Now she's a supervisor in training. Wow. She worked in cage wash? Yes. When you see Felix Taylor. So there's a couple of names of individuals that they firsthand can pass in the workplace and they can say, wow, they were all in cage wash. They advanced up and they can be able to firsthand see that progression.
I think that's so important. And that statistic for your institution says it all. That's amazing. That was kind of a question I was going to ask you is, not that we have to sell each other on this because I think we both know how valuable, but if you were telling, another organization, how valuable is it to have somebody in husbandry that had previous cage wash experience? And I think you answered the question. It's pretty darn valuable, right? It's one thing to ask someone to, stay late to scrape cages and get things through another cycle. It's quite another if you've done it yourself.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I love that. It's time for a quick break to hear about the ALAS Learning Library. Hey, are you ready to elevate your team's knowledge and skills in laboratory animal science? Well, the ALAS Learning Library is your one-stop solution for comprehensive training. With courses designed for everyone, you can train your entire team in one place, earn valuable ALAS CEUs and RACE CE credits, and take advantage of group discounts to maximize that investment. Getting started is easy too. Sign up for free to access select courses instantly to explore a vast library of resources. Empower your team, stay ahead of the field, and grow with the ALAS Learning Library, your trusted resource for laboratory animal science professionals. All right, so we talked a lot about the personnel side of things, and I just love your take on this. What about the equipment side? What's your sort of take on current cage wash equipment, where we're going? Thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, it's important and it's been beneficial to specifically our cage wash is we're doing some automation. And I know the perception sometimes, and I think it's important to explain that to the employees, that the perception is, well, if you bring in automation, then you're not going to need as many employees and people are going to be let go. But what I tell them is it could be the opposite. Workplace injuries will pretty much be eliminated. Morale will go up when you have some automation. But the main focus of automation is it allows your staff to do other things to support the entire organization. And what it also does, it allows those individuals in cage wash who some which probably have no desire to work with animals. It allows them to really feel an important part of the fabric and to real feel like they're really impacting and contributing to animal research. So that's important. So I think when you go to automation, it's important to have good conversation with your staff on how automation will be beneficial to them. And then they'll welcome it and how it will allow them to be able to complete tasks when there's inclement weather days, when people are out on vacation, and whenever other units within your department or organization are in a crunch. It's really great where they can say, hey, we need a couple of people to help out, to be able to allow them to help in other areas. And so I think that's really good for automation because we know that in animal research, one of the cage wash areas, if safety isn't stressed, can be a very dangerous work environment. And so bringing in automation has really been helpful, and it has allowed the industry to grow a little bit, and it allowed people that maybe were in a tough situation because the physicalness of moving all the equipment around. Well, it allows you to get a long-term employee. It allows you to have them stay on a little bit longer because some individuals retire because their body doesn't hold up. But it's nice to have individuals that are at their retirement age, but still love the work and are passionate about helping the team move forward.
I just love that I could listen to you expound on these things all day. And I think you hit on something really important in a lot of important things in that last bit, but something that I want to come back to too is how important it is to carve out a career path for folks that maybe do not want to work directly with animals. And I think you said that so well, that they're a part of the fabric. Like, we really need to do a better job of figuring out what that career path is and making that so, because otherwise, not everybody wants to move up and work with the mice, rats, dogs, right?
Yes.
They really want to stay with equipment, sanitization, anything that maybe does not involve direct animal care, and they're still so important to the program. I love that you highlighted that. Okay, so let's do some fun questions. What is probably one of the most fun highlights that you can share about being at St. Jude?
Some of the greatest highlights are if I'm visiting friends or visiting individuals maybe around that does not really know the magnitude of what I do at St. Jude. And so I love being in the presence of people and just really talking about the work I do and how important it is. And I love how people are very passionate about just what St. Jude does, the overall mission of St. Jude and what it does. So that's been a big highlight. It's just really, I enjoy talking to people about St. Jude, and I enjoy letting people know that I am very fortunate to work at an organization that has the mission of curing childhood catastrophic diseases. And so whenever people ask me about St. Jude, I am consistently smiling and I'm excited always. And I'm just grateful to be a part of this mission.
I love that. And what a highlight. The culture there, it just sounds amazing. And to be able to emulate that and articulate that with people that maybe aren't as familiar. I think a lot of people have a very basic awareness of St. Jude's, but maybe not the full picture. And probably certainly not the average person, probably certainly not the research that gets done and the support of that research and how important what you and your colleagues do.
Yes.
For sure. All right. Let's talk about your mentors. And you mentioned one already, but who are your mentors in this field?
I have two particular mentors. One, her name was Dolores Nathaniel. She was a husbandry technician. I think she did about maybe 20 years in the field. She retired about maybe 3-4 years ago. But I want to first explain with her. When I first came to St. Jude, I had a fear of working with mice.
And okay, we're getting the story now.
Yeah, she was very, 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 very patient. And she really helped me to really get used to working with animals. And there was a couple of times where I'd be changing a cage and wasn't as fast and the animal jump out. And she never said, oh, you're not cut out for this. She said, Leander, it's going to be okay. Just be a little slow down. And so I always think about how important that allowed me to realize how important mentors and trainers are. And that's why it's important, even in jobs, that when you specifically have someone that's responsible for training, I don't think a lot of organizations know how critical that is because retention is important. So that was one of my mentors, Dolores Nathaniel. She meant a lot. And so I've always been appreciative of her patience. My second mentor is my current boss, Dr. Harshan Pasharth. Now, it's not to say that other bosses wasn't really good, but the unique thing about him was he worked at other organizations. So when he came aboard, because this is the only place I'd ever worked, he gave me insight on things that other animal research centers are using, which helped me to broaden my experience. He talked a lot about and he implemented Lean Six Sigma. And Lean Six Sigma has been truly important in our area because what it allowed our staff to do is how do we complete a task in less steps? And if we took a step or two off every task, now we've made our job a lot easier and we've allowed our staff to help in that process. And so there was some construction that was going in the area. He gave me the opportunity. He says, I want you to handle this. And so that allowed me to get a little more knowledge. It allowed me to learn more. And so he put a little more on my plate, which in return allowed me to be more effective and more valuable to the organization. And so I want to say that, I think those are two mentors that I think really impacted my career in animal research.
That is fantastic. I just so love you explaining that, and both with such different skill sets. Oh, amazing. And that trainer role, you're right, is so important. And also, I've just never heard anyone say that so clearly about a mentor in that they came in, they brought a different perspective and allowed you to grow through their eyes almost. That is really something. That's something I'm definitely going to remember. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, you're welcome.
That is great. Wow. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're getting near the end, but I got a couple more good ones for you.
Okay.
Well, here's one that I think is kind of interesting. You've been in our industry a while, good while now. What is one thing about our industry / field that you would like to see changed?
There's one thing I would like to see change. I think the industry is a really good industry. They've done a lot to improve in a lot of different areas. I would say the most attention needs to be placed on individuals that come into a cage wash or husbandry with no prior animal experience. What I found is probably 70% of individuals that don't work out have not been in the field 2 years. They're either in cage wash or they started out in husbandry. And what I found is I think back to my mentor, Dolores, and I always ask myself if organizations are a little more patient, that maybe there's a few diamond in the roughs that they can be able to, just be a little more patient with and maybe have some long-term employees in their area. And so I think more focus on individuals that does not have animal experience. I think there's need to be more emphasis put on being more patient and getting people up to speed in animal resource, because a lot of individuals may have the other qualities: dependability, charisma, passion. And so sometimes I think I would like to see organizations be a little more patient and know that when you hire someone, you're hiring someone for a lifetime. And so if you look at it from that perspective and don't look at it as, I got to fill this body, I got to get someone to help out change these cages. And so just look at it in terms of say, hey, it's going to be a little rough now. We're going to have to be a little patient now, but down the road, we can put together a team that's really good. And I'll go back to our cage wash staff. My current cage wash staff, we have 17 employees. And out of that 17 employees, we've only hired 2 people in the last 4 years.
Wow.
In about 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Yeah. The majority of our staff is 4+ years and up to 26 years.
That's really something. Wow.
So our turnover rate over the last couple of years, 4 or 5 years, has really been maybe 1 every 2 or 3 years.
That is quite something. And I'm almost at a loss for words, because I'm not sure that I have heard statistics like that in a really long time.
And so what I think it was important was when we hire, what I've always found that the job that we do is really production. I find that if you find someone that can do the production part of the work, it's easier to teach them the animal part rather than find someone that has the animal experience and try to teach them the production part. And because that way, when they have the production and you teach them the animal part, those that are cage wash or husbandry, I've seen that I think your retention will almost double.
You're blowing my mind, my friend. But it's so simple, the way you say it. Yeah, I think we've approached this wrong. At least I don't mind admitting that I have probably approached this wrong a lot. I think that is quite insightful, what you just said. And I challenge people maybe to start thinking about that. Interesting. You're right. Because so often we think, no, we've got to start with the animals, and for all good reasons, right? I think we're all trying to do the right thing. We think, no, that's the animals first, but what an interesting way to flip it. And you've obviously proven that works. Okay, this is amazing. I am so glad. And I want to shout out to my ALAS colleagues. Leander was kind enough to host a tour to St. Jude's a couple months ago. And every single person came back to work rather, from that tour and said, you've got to get him on the podcast. You've got to get him on the podcast. This guy is amazing. And they weren't kidding. So I've loved every minute of this. I wish we could just talk about so many other things together, but I do have to wrap it up. So I have to ask you one final question. And listeners of the podcast know it's the same sort of question we ask everyone at the end. And for today, I think we've covered a lot of the things I was thinking about asking, but so I'm going to ask you maybe something a little different. And that is, what advice would you give maybe an existing program that large in size that is maybe struggling in the cage wash? They're not getting people in the door. They're not hiring the right people. People aren't staying. People are not happy. What advice would you give to them? How do you turn that around?
Whoever makes the hiring decision, I think it's important for them to not look at it from their perspective, but look at it from the persons that are working in the cage wash area. I can best serve you if I can understand what it is you're seeing. I think it's also important to make sure that because they work in cage wash, you find different ways that you value their opinion. During meetings, those that are doing good jobs, call them out and recognize them. I think that you want to make sure that there's a couple of things we do, and I'm only using it that I realize this, and I got to share this. I want to share this. There's a particular individual, so we celebrate birthdays.
Okay.
So every month we'll have cake and ice cream and we'll sing birthdays. Now I remember there was an individual that told me, thank you. When I left the house this morning, no one told me happy birthday.
Oh.
And so to be able to come to work and to know that my employee thought enough of my birthday is really, really important to me. That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and just from time to time, because they're in there and you have to have that connection. When work is slow, it's important to me. I'm just going to use a scenario. Someone may walk by and let's say her name is Miss Jane. Hey, Miss Jane, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. How are the kids? Everything's going good. You ready for the summer? People want their boss to value them. And so there's little things that you want to do. Now, I want to share something that was important. We do at St. Jude, we do what we call a survey, employee survey. And I remember one year I didn't score really well in this particular area. It says, can you go in there and talk with your manager? And I think the other things were good, but that one was they felt I was focused too much on work. And that bothered me. And so I sat down with my staff and I had an honest conversation and I helped build those relationships. And so there are moments when I'll get my lunch and sit in the break room with them. And so I want to show them that I'm in here with you guys. Every now and then I'll get out there, if it ain't but 20 minutes, to show them that I'm not going to ask you to do something I won't do. And I think it's a matter of building relationships. When you build good relationships, people are passionate about working for you. And I tell people all the time, you should never want to work for someone who don't want the best for you. And I think that's really important. And so those were things about doing that. And I think the other thing with the cage wash part is making sure in the hiring process that we find people who have good job history, but who come off as someone that are passionate about doing this. And I felt like has kind of worked out, because I hear people say a lot of times about the cage wash area, but it goes back to if you do a good job of adding value to that job, no matter how dirty and grimy that job is, it'll be a job they'll love to do. And so I want the people that work for me to feel good about coming to work. I want to be able to step back and be able to say, what can I do better? And so whenever we have inclement weather, we have a large staff still come to work. And that means they love their job. And so we just try to find ways that we can build on that and get people to really enjoy. But I think a lot is going to be with the leader of that group. The boss got to set the tone. And the people, and just do little things, do team building and come up with ways. And the last thing I will always say is this, that's important in production. Most people, they may not come out and tell you, but most people prefer to work for an organization where the boss say what he means and means what he says. And most of all, you got to be willing to hold people accountable that don't carry their weight. That is the one way. I had an old boss told me that about 25 years ago. She said, if you ever want to see high turnover in the job, if you want to see people miserable, allow people that don't carry their weight, if you don't hold them accountable in a production setting, and that's what cage wash is, that is the one thing that would deteriorate your work area like nothing else.
Wow. Those tidbits are, I just feel like if anybody put a few of those into practice regularly, you could turn things around. Wow. Oh, Leander, thank you so much for being here. You made me a better person today. I cannot wait to put some of this into practice myself. And you're helping me be self-reflective. You're helping the industry. Most important, you're helping the folks and the work that you do at St. Jude, which is so important. But they're also really fortunate to have you. And we are so fortunate to have you in our industry. I'm so thankful for you. All right. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Last Word. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to leave your feedback in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more great content. We encourage you to submit your research manuscripts to our journals, JLAS and LAS Pro. We're always looking to feature impactful studies. You can also connect with us on our social media channels or email us directly at info@alas.org. We appreciate your listening today, and we'll see you next time on The Last Word, an ALAS podcast. Until then, stay curious and stay connected.